On the first day of the 7th month of the Chinese lunar calendar, which falls somewhere between late July and early August in the Western calendar depending on the year, something happens in Penang that transforms the city. The gates of the underworld open. This is not a metaphor. In the Chinese folk religion tradition practiced by the majority of Penang's Chinese community, the 7th lunar month is the period when the gates of the afterlife are opened and the spirits of the dead, including the restless spirits of those who died without family to tend their graves, those who died violently, those who were wronged in life, are released into the world of the living for 30 days. For 30 days, Penang's Chinese community conducts an elaborate citywide program of spiritual appeasement. Incense burns on every pavement. Paper offerings are burned at the roadside. Paper money, paper houses, paper cars, paper smartphones. Everything a spirit might need in the afterlife. Opera performances are staged in every neighborhood, with the front row kept empty for the ghost audience. Food offerings are laid at the roadside at dusk. Business transactions are minimized. Marriages are not held. Moving house is avoided. And the tourists walking through Georgetown's heritage streets, photographing the murals and eating the hawker food, largely have no idea any of this is happening. This video is going to change that. Before we begin, subscribe to ensure that you never miss out on any of my videos. With that being said, let's get right in. The Hungry Ghost Festival is one of the most significant observances in the Chinese cultural calendar. It is practiced across the Chinese diaspora worldwide, in Singapore, in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, in the Chinese communities of Southeast Asia and beyond. But Penang's version of the festival has a specific character that reflects the specific history, the specific communities, and the specific relationship between the living and the dead that the Hokkien Chinese of Penang have developed over 2 centuries of settlement in this particular place. The festival is not a secret. It is visible, audible, and fragrant throughout the city for an entire month. And yet, it is one of the least documented and least understood aspects of Penang's cultural life from the tourist perspective. The murals get the coverage, the hawker food gets the coverage, the Peranakan heritage gets the coverage. The Hungry Ghost Festival, the month when the city conducts its annual conversation with its dead, gets almost none. Part of the reason is timing. The festival falls in the 7th lunar month, which does not correspond to a fixed date in the Western calendar, and which therefore does not anchor itself to the kind of predictable tourism calendar that drives travel publishing. Part of the reason is that the festival is primarily a community observance rather than a tourist attraction. It is happening for the benefit of the living and the dead community, not for the benefit of visitors, and it therefore does not produce the kind of infrastructure or formal accessibility that tourist events do. And part of the reason is that it is genuinely unfamiliar to Western visitors in a way that most of Penang's other cultural offerings are not. Temple festivals, street food, heritage architecture, these are categories that Western travelers have frameworks for. A month-long citywide festival of appeasement for hungry ghosts conducted in full public view on every pavement and street corner is a different kind of encounter. And different encounters, handled with genuine curiosity rather than superficial novelty, are the best kind. 1. The Theology. Who are the hungry ghosts? The Hungry Ghost Festival is rooted in the Chinese Buddhist and Taoist folk religion traditions' understanding of what happens after death, an understanding that is considerably more complex and considerably more socially conscious than the simple heaven and hell binary that most Western visitors bring to the subject. In this tradition, the afterlife contains multiple realms. The worthy dead are reincarnated or achieve a form of heavenly existence. The ancestors of living families are maintained in the spirit world through the regular offerings and prayers of their descendants, paper money burned at the graves, incense at the household altars, the ritual attention that keeps the ancestral spirits comfortable and protected. These are the good dead, the tended dead, the dead who have family to remember them. Then there are the others, the spirits of those who died without family, or whose family has forgotten them, or who died in circumstances, violence, accident, wrongful death, suicide, that left them unable to move peacefully into the afterlife. These are the hungry ghosts, not evil spirits, suffering spirits. Spirits who are hungry because nobody feeds them, cold because nobody provides for them, restless because nobody tends them. Spirits who, if neglected, become capable of bringing misfortune to the living simply through their accumulated need. The 7th lunar month is when these spirits are released from the lower realms to wander the world of the living. The month's observances are an act of collective community care for the spiritual welfare of the forgotten dead. The food offerings are real food, laid out at the pavement and roadside so that the hungry ghosts can eat. The paper offerings burned, the paper money, the paper houses, the paper luxury goods, are real transmissions to the spirit world, providing the ghosts with the material comfort they lacked in life. The opera performances are genuine entertainment, offered to the spirits as a form of hospitality. The front row seats are kept empty not symbolically, but literally. The spirits attend, and the seats are theirs. This is not a performance of belief. For the community conducting these observances, the hungry ghosts are genuinely present during the 7th month, genuinely in need of the offerings provided, and genuinely capable of affecting the lives of the living through gratitude or through neglect. The month's rituals are practical spiritual housekeeping conducted with the seriousness that practical housekeeping deserves. 2. The offerings. What burns at the roadside? The most immediately visible element of the Hungry Ghost Festival in Penang streets is the burning. Wherever you walk during the 7th lunar month, you encounter the roadside fires, metal bins, or improvised burning frames positioned at the pavement edge, tended by residents and business owners who feed them with offerings throughout the day, and particularly in the evening hours. What goes into the fires is one of the most fascinating aspects of the festival, and one of the things that most surprises visitors who encounter it without context. The standard category of offering is joss paper, known as hell banknotes, ghost money, or spirit money, depending on the community. Printed paper currency designed for the spirit world, complete with denominations in the billions, and the image of the Jade Emperor rather than a living head of state. This is the basic offering, the equivalent of sending cash to ensure the spirits have what they need. But the range of what is burned in contemporary Penang goes far beyond paper currency. The paper offering industry has kept pace with the modern world in ways that are simultaneously touching and darkly comic. You can buy, at the offering shops that do remarkable business during the 7th month, paper replicas of almost anything a 21st century person might want. Paper smartphones, complete with paper accessories, paper luxury cars, Mercedes, BMWs, in multiple colors, paper branded clothing and handbags, paper airplanes for spirits who want to travel, paper mahjong sets, paper televisions, paper credit cards, paper passports, paper condominiums, complete with paper furniture and paper domestic staff. The logic is sincere. In the spirit world, what is burned in the living world becomes real. If a deceased relative needs a smartphone to communicate with other spirits, you burn a paper smartphone. If a hungry ghost who died in poverty deserves better in the afterlife than they had in life, you burn a paper luxury apartment. The offerings are acts of love and care as much as they are acts of spiritual appeasement, and the specificity of the items burned reflects the specificity of the relationships and the needs being addressed. Beyond the paper goods, food offerings are also central to the festival. Cooked food, fruit, sweets, drinks, laid out on tables or on the pavement at dusk, addressed to the hungry ghosts with specific prayers that invite them to the feast. The food is not consumed by the living after the offering. It has been given to the spirits, and eating it would be an act of taking back what was given. The next morning, the food is simply cleared away. 3. The performances, Getai and opera. The performances are the element of the Hungry Ghost Festival that most dramatically transforms Penang's physical environment during the 7th month. Across the city, in residential neighborhoods, in commercial districts, in the heritage zone and the outer suburbs, temporary stages appear in public spaces, car parks, street corners, open fields, the wider stretches of road that can accommodate both a stage and an audience. And on these stages, for the entire month, performances run. The traditional form is Chinese opera,
specifically the Hokkien and Teochew dialect opera traditions that the dominant Chinese communities of Penang brought with them from southern China. These are elaborate, stylized performances in traditional costumes with painted faces, high vocal registers, and the full orchestral accompaniment of gongs, drums, cymbals, and stringed instruments that creates the specific carrying sound of Chinese opera. The stories performed are from the classical Chinese theatrical repertoire, tales of loyalty and betrayal, of love and loss, of the supernatural interactions between the human and spirit worlds. The performers are professional companies contracted specifically for the festival season. The contemporary version of the festival performance, Getai, is a more recent development that runs alongside the traditional opera. Getai is a vernacular entertainment form, live concerts with Mandarin and dialect pop music, comedy, variety acts, and a deliberately accessible format that appeals to younger audiences who may not have the cultural background to follow traditional opera. Getai performances are louder, more brightly lit, and considerably more raucous than opera, with audiences that cheer, sing along, and react to the performers with the energy of a pop concert rather than a formal theatrical event. Both forms share the defining characteristic of the Hungry Ghost Festival performance. The front row of seats is always empty. The first row is reserved for the ghost audience, the spiritual guests of honor for whom the entire performance is ultimately staged. This reservation is taken seriously. A visitor who sits in the front row without understanding the custom will be quietly but firmly directed to a different seat. The front row belongs to the dead. It is not a tourist photo opportunity. It is a genuine act of hospitality towards the invited spirits. Walking through Penang at night during the 7th lunar month, following the sound of the opera from one neighborhood to the next, finding a performance in a car park at midnight that has been running since dusk and will run until dawn, watching an audience of elderly residents and young families and curious visitors all sitting together in plastic chairs in a lit-up street while a professional opera company performs for the living and the dead simultaneously. This is one of the most extraordinary free cultural experiences available anywhere in Southeast Asia. It requires no ticket, it requires no booking, it requires only that you know it is happening and that you show up with the appropriate respect.
4. The rules. What the living do and do not do. The Hungry Ghost Festival imposes a set of behavioral expectations on the living community that are understood and observed within the Chinese-Malaysian community, and that are entirely invisible to most visitors. Understanding them does not require following them as a tourist, but it provides an essential context for understanding the festival as a lived experience rather than simply a spectacle. The most significant rule is the avoidance of certain activities during the 7th month. Marriage is not conducted during this period. Weddings would invite the hungry ghosts as uninvited guests and would bring their restless energy into what should be a celebratory beginning. Moving house is avoided for the same reason. Starting a new business is considered inauspicious. Swimming in the sea is discouraged. The water spirits are believed to be particularly active during the 7th month and capable of pulling the living under. Children are kept indoors after dark more consistently than at other times of year. The instructions given to children across generations: do not call out to strangers in the dark, do not step on the roadside offerings, do not pick up money found in the street during the 7th month, as it may be hellbank notes that have blown away from the fires, are simultaneously practical safety guidance and spiritual instruction. Business transactions are treated with particular care during the festival period. The 7th month is not considered an auspicious time to sign contracts, make major purchases, or begin significant financial commitments. This is not merely superstition in the dismissive sense. It reflects the community's understanding that the 7th month is a time of heightened spiritual traffic, when the boundaries between the living and the dead are thinner than usual, and when the normal protective routines of daily life need to be maintained more carefully. The roadside offerings must not be stepped on, kicked, or interfered with. This applies equally to the food laid out for the ghosts, the burning bins, and the ash from completed offerings that may remain on the pavement. Treating the offerings carelessly is an insult to the spirits they were made for, an insult that the spirit world is believed capable of responding to.
A tourist who kicks over a line of offerings or photographs the burning bins with a disrespectful commentary is not merely being culturally insensitive. From the community's perspective, they are provoking entities that have been specifically invited to be present and that have specific needs that the offerings were designed to meet. The respectful approach for visitors is simple. Walk around the offerings. Do not touch them. If you want to photograph the burning bins or the roadside food offerings, do so quietly and at a respectful distance. Observe the empty front row at performances without sitting in it or pointing at it. And approach the entire month's observances with the awareness that you are a guest in the middle of a genuine spiritual practice that has been conducted by this community as long as they have been in Penang. 5. The Penang character. Why this festival is different here. The Hungry Ghost Festival is observed by Chinese communities across Southeast Asia and beyond. Why is Penang's version worth particular attention? The answer lies in the specific density and the specific tradition of the Hokkien Chinese community that has practiced these observances in Penang for over 2 centuries. The Hokkien people, the specific Chinese dialect group from Fujian province that dominated early Penang's Chinese immigration, brought with them a particularly rich and elaborate version of the 7th-month observances that combined Buddhist, Taoist, and folk religious elements in ways that were specific to the Hokkien tradition. In Penang, the 7th-month observances are organized at the community level by the district associations and clan organizations that have been part of the Hokkien Chinese social structure since the earliest days of the settlement. Each district has its own committee, its own schedule of performances, its own roster of offerings, its own network of relationships with the spirit world that reflects generations of community practice in that specific neighborhood. The result is that the festival in Penang is not a single event, but a distributed neighborhood-by-neighborhood program that runs simultaneously across the entire city for a full month. The scale and the community organization of the Penang Festival is exceptional, even by the standards of Chinese diaspora Hungry Ghost observances. The budget committed to performances, offerings, and organization by Penang's 7th-month committees runs to millions of ringgit annually. The professional opera and Getai companies contracted for the season come from across Malaysia and from Singapore and Taiwan. The paper offering industry that supplies the burning goods is one of Penang's more significant informal economic sectors during this period. And Penang's specific multicultural character adds a layer of texture that communities with more homogeneous populations cannot replicate. The Hungry Ghost Festival happens in the same streets where Hindu temples are conducting their own observances, where mosques are calling the faithful to prayer, where the Malay community is going about its life in full awareness of and good-humored coexistence with its Chinese neighbors' month of communing with the dead. This is not tolerance in the passive sense. It is the specific, practiced, habitual coexistence of communities that have been sharing the same streets and the same city for 2 centuries and that have developed genuine mutual familiarity. Not agreement, not merger, but the specific respect that comes from long proximity and the knowledge that your neighbor's spiritual life is their own.
6. How to experience it as a visitor. If you are in Penang during the 7th lunar month, which falls somewhere between late July and late September depending on the year, the exact dates shifting with the lunar calendar, here is how to experience the Hungry Ghost Festival properly. Check the dates before you travel. The 7th month begins on the first day of the 7th lunar month, and the festival climaxes on the 15th, the Hungry Ghost Day itself, when the gates of the underworld are at their widest and the spirit activity is at its most intense. If you can be in Penang on the 15th, the city's atmosphere on that night is unlike anything else in the Malaysian calendar. Walk in the evenings. The festival is most visible and most atmospheric after dark. The burning fires are lit in the evening. The opera and Getai performances begin at dusk and run through the night. The food offerings are laid out at the roadside as the sun goes down. An evening walk through any Chinese residential neighborhood during the 7th month will put you in the middle of the observances naturally and will give you encounters that no guided tour can replicate. Find a performance. The stages appear throughout the city in car parks and street corners and open spaces. Look and listen for them. Once you find one, sit in the audience area, in any row except the front. Watch for an hour. Let the opera or the Getai wash over you whether or not you understand the language. The experience of sitting in a lit-up car park at 11 in the evening watching a professional Chinese opera company perform for an audience of local residents and invited spirits is one of the most complete and genuinely strange cultural experiences Penang offers. Respect the offerings. Do not touch them. Do not step on them. Do not photograph them in a disrespectful manner. The fires are not photo props. The food laid out at the pavement is not a picnic. These are genuine acts of spiritual care conducted by people who take them seriously. Ask questions. The residents of Georgetown's heritage neighborhoods are, by strong general consensus, forthcoming and friendly to visitors who approach with genuine curiosity and basic respect. If you encounter someone tending a burning fire or preparing offerings, a simple and genuine expression of curiosity, "What is this for? What are you offering?" will almost always produce a conversation that is more illuminating than any information board or tour guide. And bring the specific kind of attention that this festival rewards, the attention that is willing to sit with something unfamiliar without immediately categorizing it, without demanding that it fit into a framework you already have, without reducing it to a photographic opportunity. The Hungry Ghost Festival is one of the most complete and coherent expressions of a community's relationship with its dead, its ancestors, and its spiritual obligations that you will encounter anywhere in the world. It deserves the full attention of the traveler who was lucky enough to witness it. Every year, for one entire month, Penang conducts a citywide ceremony for its dead. The fires burn on every pavement, the opera plays for the empty front row, the paper luxuries spiral upward in smoke toward the afterlife, the children are kept inside after dark. The community tends to its restless dead with the practical, consistent, loving attention that 200 years of Hokkien Chinese settlement in this specific place has produced. And most of the tourists eating char kway teow on Lorong Salamat and photographing the boy on the bicycle on Armenian Street do not know it is happening. Now you do. If your next trip to Penang can be timed to the 7th lunar month, go. Walk the streets at night, find the opera in the car park, smell the burning, watch the front row stay empty. Let the city show you the part of itself that it conducts for reasons that have nothing to do with your presence and everything to do with its own obligations to the people who came before. That is the Penang that most visitors never see, and it is extraordinary. Hit the like button if this added something to how you understand this city. Subscribe for more content that goes this deep. Drop a comment below. Have you experienced the Hungry Ghost Festival in Penang or anywhere else? What did it do to you? I read everything. See you in the next one.